2023 has been a pretty solid year for racing games, with a good variety released so far. I've spent a few hours on Forza Motorsport, which I've enjoyed, and Japanese Driftmaster does look promising. But today, I'm going back to the 90s to test out some Nintendo 64 and PlayStation 1 games with a modern wheel. Yes, the wheel isn't exactly new, but it is modern compared to these ancient relics. Am I right? I've added some links in the description for tutorials on how to set up the G920 with the Project 64 and DuckStation emulators. They are the exact videos I followed, however you may need to tweak your settings for the best experience. Starting with the Nintendo 64, and the first game I tried is one of my favourite racing games of all time, Diddy Kong Racing. Using the wheel works great with the kart or hovercraft, but flying the plane sucks as you have to use one of the buttons to fly up or down. I ended up using the shifter for those controls, and it is playable, but I'll be using a standard controller for any future playthroughs of this amazing game. World Driver Championship is one of the most underrated hidden gems on the Nintendo 64, with its fun track layouts, challenging AI, and amazing graphics for its time. I was hoping a wheel would elevate its fun factor even higher, but the floaty car handling makes me want to go back to a standard controller. It is enjoyable with the wheel, and it's worth a try if you're a fan of the game. If you haven't had a chance to play it in any capacity, then I highly recommend giving this one a go. Cruisin USA was a big hit in the arcade, so I thought a wheel with the home release would enhance the experience drastically, and I was right. I won't be going back to a controller with this game. Just make sure you change your controller configuration options to suit if you want to play with manual transmission. This is something I neglected in part 1 when I tried Cruisin World. Once I changed those options, both of these games are awesome to play. I am a big fan of Star Wars, and yes, that includes the prequels. I won't tell you my thoughts on the sequel trilogy though. I liked Episode 1 Racer back in the day, but never thought it was anything special, so I wasn't expecting great things when replaying it with a wheel, but I was really shocked how well it worked. It handles surprisingly well, and I love the boost mechanic here using the pedals. Beatle Adventure Racing was a fun little game made by EA, back when they released high-quality racing games consistently. Using the G920 here improves it even further, with more precise control, making it a title I'd recommend you trying out in 2023. The soundtrack is very of its time though. Although I haven't followed the WRC for any length of time, I can certainly appreciate the skill and courage those rally drivers have. I've played a few rally games over the years, and I always use a controller instead of a wheel because I suck at sliding and drifting in corners with it. It's something I'm trying to work on in Japanese Driftmaster. I thought I was in for a bad experience with V-Rally 99, but I really like the handling model here. It is a bit floaty, but I got used to it and was able to control my slides with ease. Though it's not exactly the most realistic game, and there's a little rally game on the PlayStation that made me forget about this one. I'll talk about it later.
Buongiorno.
You could play Automobil Lamborghini with the G920, but I would just stick to a controller as the dead zone is whack in this game, and no matter what settings I chose, it just didn't feel right. Yes, I selected the wheel in the game's controller options menu, and that didn't help much either. Now onto some games I'd never played before. Starting with Mickey's Speedway, and after my experience with Mario Kart on the wheel, I had low expectations for this one, but it played shockingly well with the G920, so I'll stick with it in the future, if I get time to play it again. I had only heard bad things about South Park Rally, and it does seem like a low-budget, generic kart racer. But the actual handling with the wheel was okay. Still, there's so many better racing games on the 64 that I'd rather play. San Francisco Rush, just like Cruisin USA, was originally in arcades, so it's no surprise to me that using a wheel feels so natural. The handling feels more like Daytona USA than the Cruisin series, and that's not a bad thing at all. Thanks to everyone who recommended this game to me, as I thoroughly enjoyed playing it. It has some serious 90s attitude problems though. I'm just trying to select my vehicle, and I have to put up with this garbage.
It's dangerous!
Now for the last Nintendo 64 game I tried, and it is Ridge Racer. This game looks incredible, but I just can't get used to the drifting mechanics while using the wheel. Like I said before, this might be a me problem, so I'll be using a standard controller for this one in the future. Moving on to the PlayStation games now, and sticking with the Ridge Racer series, here is Type 4, which feels more precise than the 64 game. However, I still have the same struggles with the drifting mechanics with the wheel, so I'll be sticking to the DualShock for this one. I hadn't played any of the games from the Wipeout series. I knew that they are futuristic races, so I assumed it wouldn't be worth trying with the wheel, but I was totally wrong with this one, and it feels great with the G920. I'm very keen to try more games from this series.
Engaged. Disengaging. Warning. Warning.
I enjoyed Need for Speed 2 on the PC when it was released, but after playing Hot Pursuit and High Stakes, I never returned to this one. It plays great with the G920, much better than using a keyboard like I did back in the day. But if I want my old school Need for Speed fix, I'd go back to those other games I mentioned, using a controller or a wheel. 007 Racing got trashed by critics when it released, but I found it to be a neat, guilty pleasure game which was different to proper racing games at the time. I probably liked it because I'd played GoldenEye on the Nintendo 64 and was into anything James Bond related in the 90s and early 2000s.
Do please try and return some of this equipment in pristine order. Don't touch that! It's my lunch.
The weapons, missions, and AI in 007 Racing are jankier than I remember, but coupled with the wheel, the vehicle's handling is surprisingly good.
Well, he won't be hanging around.
Wonderful shot, Mr. Bond. Careful.
Mind the gap!
We've got company.
The mission has been compromised. We are sending in field agents immediately.
So we all know I suck at rally games and drifting with the wheel. I was thinking I'd be in for a shite experience with Colin the Rally, and just looking at the start of the first race here, you'd think I was correct. But as I got used to the handling, I could control my slides with ease and was having an absolute blast using the G920. I'm definitely going to continue playing this one, as it's become one of my favourite old games to play with a wheel. F1 2000 is the first Formula 1 game in this video, but it's not the last. I'd never played this one before and I was glad that it works great with the wheel, but I was more amazed with the graphics for this one. Is it just me or does it look incredible for a PS1 game? Time for the last PS1 game I tried, and it's another one that I haven't played or heard of before, Rage Racer. I do really like the arcadey handling of this title, and I found it a bit easier to use the wheel here than Ridge Racer 4, but I still struggle to initiate and control drifts, so I'll be using the DualShock once again. I'm glad this one was recommended to me and I'll continue playing it. I really appreciated the tacho gauge lighting up in tunnels. It's just a nice attention to detail for such an old game. I wanted to include some Sega Saturn games in this video, but I had some trouble getting the G920 to work with the emulator I'm using. Instead of forgetting about Sega completely, I've added 2 games from their other systems. First is Daytona USA on the Dreamcast, and wowee, it plays awesome on the G920, just as it would at the arcade. You can even use the H-pattern shifter to select gears. Time to try a Sega Genesis game, and if you saw part 1 where I couldn't get Nigel Mansell's World Championship to work with the wheel and the Game Boy, well, as you can see here, it works with the Genesis emulator. Thanks for watching this video. This was a lot of fun revisiting these games using the G920 and trying some for the very first time. If you like racing games of this era and have a compatible wheel, you should definitely try these out. Let me know if I've missed one of your favourite games, or you could recommend some GameCube, Xbox or Dreamcast racing games for me to try, as I might test some of those out in the near future.